The crystal chandeliers of Le Lumiere cast golden light across marble floors as Manhattan's elite clinked champagne glasses. But in the corner booth, 32-year-old CEO Elena Crane wasn't celebrating. Her 6-year-old son Oliver clutched her Chanel dress, whispering words that made her blood run cold. "Mom, I'm scared of all these people." Elena had built a billion-dollar empire. She'd negotiated with presidents and crushed hostile takeovers. But she couldn't remember the last time her son had smiled at her the way he used to. Then she saw him, a tired man in a faded work shirt, carefully cutting pasta into small pieces for his giggling 7-year-old daughter. His hands were scarred and rough. His watch was scratched and cheap. But his smile, that smile was worth more than every dollar in Elena's offshore accounts. And her son noticed too. "Mom," Oliver whispered, his voice trembling with something Elena hadn't heard in years. Pure longing. "I want to sit with them." What happened next would expose a corporate conspiracy, save a company, and prove that sometimes the most powerful person in the room is the one everyone underestimates. Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to Unbroken Truths. I'm so glad you're here with me today. Before we dive into Elena's breaking point and Lucas's incredible courage, tell me, where in the world are you watching from? Drop your location in the comments below. I love seeing our community grow across cities, countries, and continents. And if you haven't subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We share true stories of everyday heroes every week, and your support helps us bring these important stories to light. Lucas Bennett never imagined he'd end up here, a 36-year-old single father working 2 brutal jobs just to keep the lights on. By day, he delivered packages across the city. By night, he fixed broken furnaces and leaking pipes in apartment buildings. His body ached constantly. His bank account was always empty. But tonight was special. His daughter Sophie had brought home straight A's, and Lucas had promised her a celebration dinner. Not at Le Lumiere. Of course, that 5-star restaurant was impossible on his budget. But the little cafe next door served excellent pasta, and that was enough. Except when they arrived, a confused hostess had seated them at a quiet corner table inside the main restaurant instead. Lucas's heart sank when he realized the mistake. He glanced at the menu and saw prices that made his stomach twist. One appetizer cost more than his weekly grocery budget. But Sophie's eyes were wide with wonder, taking in the crystal and silk and soft piano music. He couldn't bring himself to correct the error and watch her face fall. "Just for tonight," he told himself. "We'll order one dish and share it. She deserves to see something beautiful." What Lucas didn't know was that beautiful things were about to see him too. Sophie bounced in her seat, her blonde curls catching the chandelier light. "Daddy, it's so fancy. Look at all the sparkly lights." "I see them, sweetheart." Lucas smiled, though anxiety gnawed at him. He quickly scanned for the cheapest item on the menu, a simple pasta dish for $34. He'd make it work somehow. As he carefully cut Sophie's portion into perfect bite-sized pieces, his trained hands moved with practiced efficiency. Years ago, those same hands had performed emergency surgery in combat zones and had saved lives under impossible conditions. Now they cut pasta for his little girl, and he wouldn't change it for anything. If you believe that being present is worth more than any paycheck, drop a comment. Elena Crane hadn't felt genuine warmth in years. After her husband's death 3 years ago, she'd buried her grief beneath steel and strategy. She'd transformed herself into the ice queen the business magazines loved to photograph, untouchable, unbreakable, and utterly alone. Her 12-hour workdays had become 14, then 16. Board meetings bled into conference calls. Acquisitions consumed her weekends. She told herself she was securing Oliver's future, building an empire he'd inherit. But somewhere along the way, she'd stopped building with him. Oliver had everything money could buy: a wing of their penthouse mansion, toys that cost more than cars, a full-time nanny who managed his schedule with corporate precision. He attended the best private school in Manhattan, took piano and Mandarin and tennis lessons. He was 6 years old and already had a more impressive resume than most adults. But he never laughed anymore. "Mom, I'm scared of the crowd," he'd whispered as they entered Le Lumiere. The words cut deeper than any hostile takeover attempt. When did her son become afraid? When had the spark left his eyes? Elena's assistant had suggested this dinner as a soft reintroduction to the public, a calculated photo opportunity showing the human side of the Crane empire. Smile for the cameras. Show them you're not just a corporate machine. Control the narrative. Everything in Elena's life was calculated now, even this dinner with her son. She'd chosen La Lumiere because she owned 15% of the parent company. The VIP booth was already reserved, positioned perfectly for the photographer who'd accidentally captured them in a candid moment of maternal warmth. But Oliver had stopped walking. His small hand gripped her dress tighter as he stared across the restaurant at Lucas's table. The tired father was laughing at something his daughter said, his whole face transforming with genuine joy. "Mom," Oliver said again, "that girl looks so happy. Can we sit with them?" Elena opened her mouth to say no, to explain why CEOs don't sit with maintenance workers, why their worlds don't mix, why this wasn't part of the plan. But then she saw her son's face. For the first time in months, Oliver looked hopeful. The floor manager approached, his smile oily and practiced. "Mrs. Crane, your VIP table is ready. Perhaps we should relocate that other family to a more appropriate section." The contempt in his voice was barely masked. He'd already assessed Lucas's worn clothing, his cheap watch, his out-of-place presence. Elena felt something shift inside her chest, a crack in the ice she'd built around her heart. "No," she heard herself say. "We'll sit with them." The manager's face went pale. "But Mrs. Crane, the photographers, are you questioning my decision?" Her voice could have frozen nitrogen. The manager retreated immediately, stammering apologies. Elena took Oliver's hand and walked toward Lucas's table, her 5-inch heels clicking on marble. With each step, she felt the weight of eyes on her back, the other diners whispering, phones discreetly raised to capture this bizarre moment. The Ice Queen approaches a janitor's table. This would be all over social media within minutes. But Oliver was smiling, and that was worth more than any amount of good publicity. Lucas looked up as her shadow fell across the table, and his expression shifted from confusion to shock to something close to panic. She watched him swallow hard, his Adam's apple bobbing. "My son wishes to join your table," Elena said, her voice clipped and professional because she didn't know how else to speak anymore. "May we? If you've ever chosen love over appearances, type real in the comments. Let's celebrate what truly matters." Lucas's world tilted sideways. Elena Crane, the woman whose face graced Forbes covers, whose net worth exceeded small countries' GDP, was standing at his table, asking to sit down. His first instinct was to say no, to save them both the awkwardness. She belonged in the VIP section with senators and CEOs. He belonged, well, anywhere but here. But before he could speak, Sophie's face lit up like Christmas morning. "Yes, you can sit right here, miss." She patted the leather seat beside her. "We're celebrating my report card. I got all A's." Lucas quickly stood, nearly knocking over his water glass in his haste. "Of course, please, I'll just—" He pulled out a chair for Elena, his hands trembling slightly. This close, he could smell her perfume, something expensive and floral that probably cost more than his monthly rent. Her jewelry caught the light, each piece worth more than he'd earned in a decade. She belonged to a different universe. "Thank you," Elena said softly, settling into the chair with practiced grace. Oliver immediately took the seat next to Sophie. His earlier fear completely vanished. The two children locked eyes for a moment, then Sophie grinned. "Hi, I'm Sophie. That's my dad. He's the best dad in the whole world because he can fix anything." "I'm Oliver," the boy said shyly. "My mom runs a big company." "That's so cool. What does she do?" "I'm not sure," Oliver admitted, his voice small. "She's always working." The words hung in the air like an accusation. Elena's face remained impassive, but Lucas saw her hand tighten on the table's edge, her knuckles going white. He recognized that look, the barely controlled pain of hearing a truth you already knew but couldn't face. "Well," Sophie announced with the absolute confidence of a 7-year-old, "you can share my dad tonight. He's really good at making people feel better." Lucas' throat tightened. "Sophie, I'm sure Mrs. Crane. Please, call me Elena." She glanced at him briefly, and for just a second, he saw past the polished exterior to something raw underneath. "And your daughter is very kind." An awkward silence settled over the table. Lucas and Elena sat rigid, separated by class and experience and 1,000 unspoken differences. But the children filled the void immediately, chattering about school and cartoons and their favorite foods. Oliver, who moments ago had been terrified of the crowd, now laughed at Sophie's animated story about their neighbor's cat getting stuck in a tree. His whole face transformed, becoming the child he was supposed to be instead of the miniature adult his life had shaped him into. Elena watched her son with an expression Lucas recognized all too well, the devastating realization that you've been failing at the thing that matters most. As the conversation flowed around them, Lucas resumed cutting Sophie's pasta into manageable pieces. It was automatic now, something he'd done 1,000 times. His hands moved with precision, ensuring each piece was the perfect size. Across the table, Oliver watched with absolute fascination. "Sir?" the boy said quietly. Can you cut mine too?" Lucas looked up, surprised. Oliver was staring at him with an intensity that seemed too old for his young face, a desperate hunger for something Lucas couldn't quite name. "Of course, buddy." Lucas reached for Oliver's plate but hesitated. "Is that okay with you, Elena?" She didn't answer immediately. Lucas watched emotions flicker across her face. Shock, pain, something that looked almost like grief. Her son had just asked a complete stranger to do something she'd delegated to nannies and housekeepers for years. "Yes," she finally whispered. "Thank you." Lucas pulled Oliver's plate closer and began cutting with the same care he'd shown Sophie. The boy watched every movement, his eyes wide. "You're really good at that," Oliver said softly. "Better than anyone at my house." "Well, I've had lots of practice with this one." Lucas nodded toward Sophie, who beamed with pride. "My daddy takes care of me every single day," Sophie announced. "He makes my breakfast and walks me to school and helps with homework and reads me stories and—" "Every day?" Oliver interrupted, his voice cracking slightly. "Your dad does all that every single day?" "Of course. Don't all dads?" The question landed like a bomb. Oliver looked at his mother, then back at Sophie, confusion and longing warring on his face. "My mom has people who do those things. She's too busy." "Oh." Sophie processed this with the brutal honesty of childhood. "That sounds lonely." If a parent's presence is the greatest gift they can give, comment present below. Share this story with someone who needs to hear this message. The waiter appeared at their table, a thin man with a practiced sneer who'd clearly assessed the situation and found it amusing. His eyes swept over Lucas's faded shirt and Sophie's discount store dress before landing on Elena with fawning deference. "Mrs. Crane, what an unexpected pleasure. May I suggest our chef's special tonight? The Chilean sea bass with truffle reduction is exceptional." "Actually," Oliver piped up, pointing at Sophie's plate, "I want exactly what she's having. That looks really good." The waiter's smile turned condescending as he looked at Lucas. "Sir, are you aware that's a $67 pasta dish? The children's menu might be more appropriate for your situation." The words hit Lucas like a physical blow. His face burned with shame. Around them, other diners had started noticing the scene, phones appearing to capture the entertainment. Lucas started, his voice rough with embarrassment. But Elena's voice cut through the room like a blade. "Bring 2 more servings of that pasta, and a bottle of your 2015 Barolo." The temperature at the table dropped 10 degrees. "Of course, Mrs. Crane, I just thought." "You thought wrong." Elena's eyes were ice. "Charge everything to my corporate account, and in the future, you'll treat every guest in this restaurant with respect, or you'll find yourself serving food elsewhere. Am I clear?" "Yes, ma'am. My apologies." The waiter fled, but the damage was done. The nearby tables buzzed with whispers and barely concealed laughter. That's when Mrs. Whitmore struck. The society maven rose from her table like a viper uncoiling, her voice pitched to carry across the restaurant. "Elena Crane, dining with the help? How delightfully progressive of you. Tell me, is this some new charity initiative? Feed a janitor's night?" Her companions tittered obediently. Phones rose higher, capturing every moment. Lucas's hands clenched under the table. This wasn't new. He'd faced this casual contempt 1,000 times. From landlords who sneered at his job applications. From other parents at Sophie's school who moved their children away when they learned he was just a maintenance worker. From dates who ghosted him the moment they saw his apartment. He'd learned to swallow it, to smile and move on. But Sophie hadn't. His 7-year-old daughter stood up on her chair, her small chest puffed with righteous fury. My daddy is better than all of you. He helps people every day. You're all just mean. Sophie, Lucas reached for her, mortified. Sit down, sweetheart. But Oliver stood too, joining her. Mr. Lucas is the nicest person here. He's better than all the boring people at my house who only smile when my mom's watching. The restaurant fell silent. Every eye was on their table. Mrs. Whitmore's smile was poisonous. How charming. Teaching them class solidarity early, are we? Elena, darling, your public image consultant must be having a stroke right about now. This little stunt is none of your concern, Patricia. Elena's voice could have cut diamonds. She stood slowly, and despite being shorter than Mrs. Whitmore, somehow seemed to tower over her. My son has shown more character in 5 minutes than you've displayed in 20 years of social climbing. Now sit down before I have security escort you out of my restaurant. The emphasis on my sent a ripple through the crowd. Mrs. Whitmore's face went pale as she remembered exactly who owned what in this city. She sat down, but as Elena settled back into her seat, Lucas saw her hand trembling. The confrontation had cost her something. Beneath the icy exterior, something was cracking. And then her phone rang. Her assistant's voice carried across the table, panic-stricken and desperate. Miss Crane, we have an emergency. The board is convening for an unscheduled vote. They're claiming you're mentally unfit to lead. Someone leaked medical records suggesting. Elena's face went white. The phone slipped from her fingers, clattering on the table. And Lucas, watching with the trained eyes of a man who'd seen 1,000 medical crises, recognized what was happening a split second before everyone else. She was going into shock. If you've ever stood up for someone who couldn't stand up for themselves, comment courage below. This story gets even more powerful. Keep watching. Time seemed to slow down. Elena's breathing became rapid and shallow. Her pupils dilated. A fine sheen of sweat appeared on her forehead despite the restaurant's cool temperature. Her hand, still gripping the table's edge, began to shake uncontrollably. Around them, the other diners whispered and pointed. Phones captured every moment of the Ice Queen's meltdown. This would be viral within minutes, the perfect ammunition for whoever was orchestrating her downfall. But Lucas wasn't thinking about corporate politics or social media. He was thinking about a combat zone in Afghanistan, 7 years ago. A young soldier going into shock after an IED blast, her blood pressure plummeting, her body shutting down. He'd had 30 seconds to stabilize her or watch her die. His hands moved before his brain fully processed the decision. He grabbed the water glass and a sugar packet from the abandoned coffee service on the neighboring table. His movements were precise, automatic, muscle memory from a life he'd tried to leave behind. Elena, his voice cut through her panic, firm but calm. Look at me, just me. Her wild eyes found his. You're experiencing acute stress-induced hypoglycemia. Your blood sugar has crashed. I need you to drink this water with the sugar mixed in. All of it. Right now. He pressed the glass into her trembling hands. Somewhere in her panicked mind, the authority in his voice must have registered. She drank, her hands steadying slightly as Lucas kept his own wrapped around hers, guiding the glass. That's good. Keep breathing. In through your nose, out through your mouth. Match my rhythm. He demonstrated his presence, anchoring her to reality. Around them, the restaurant staff stood frozen, useless. Oliver had gone pale, tears streaming down his face as he watched his mother fall apart. But Lucas had dealt with worse, much worse. He kept his voice low and steady, talking her through it. You're okay. Your body is responding to extreme stress, that's all. This isn't permanent. You're safe. Oliver is safe. Just breathe with me. 2 minutes passed, then 5. Slowly, color returned to Elena's face. Her breathing normalized. The shaking stopped. She looked up at Lucas, and he saw the exact moment awareness returned. The horror of what had just happened in front of 100 witnesses with cameras. How did you? Her voice was barely a whisper. How did you know what to do? Later. Lucas glanced around at the crowd, at the phone still recording. Right now, we need to get you somewhere private. Elena's assistant had materialized beside them, looking equal parts terrified and calculating. Mrs. Crane, the car is ready. We should leave immediately. The board meeting is in 30 minutes, and she's not going anywhere until she's stable, Lucas cut in, his voice brooking no argument. And who exactly are you to make that determination? The assistant's eyes were cold, assessing. Good question, Lucas thought. Who was he? A washed-up doctor playing at being a maintenance worker? A failure who couldn't save the one person who mattered most? But then Oliver's small voice broke through. He's the only one who helped her. Everyone else just watched. Out of the mouths of children. There's a private room in the back, Elena managed, her voice still shaky. Near the kitchen, staff only. We can talk there. Lucas nodded. He turned to Sophie, who looked scared and confused. Sweetheart, can you stay with Oliver for a few minutes? Be brave for me? Sophie straightened immediately, taking Oliver's hand. I'll protect him, Daddy, like you protect me. His heart cracked a little. As they made their way through the restaurant, Lucas felt the weight of every stare, heard the whispers that would become tomorrow's headlines. Did you see that? The CEO had a complete breakdown. Who was that man? Some kind of doctor? This is exactly what the board has been worried about. She's unstable. I got it all on video. This is going to be everywhere. The private room was blessedly quiet. Elena sank into a chair, her perfect posture finally crumbling. Without the audience, without the need to maintain appearances, she looked exactly like what she was, an exhausted woman at the end of her rope. Lucas pulled up a chair across from her. How long has this been going on? What? The stress symptoms. Trembling hands, difficulty breathing, moments where you feel like you're losing control. Elena stared at him. How do you... Because I've seen it before. You're running on empty, and your body is trying to force you to stop before you kill yourself. He leaned forward, his voice gentle but firm. When did you last eat a full meal? Sleep more than 4 hours? Take a day off? I can't remember. She laughed, but it was a broken sound. I thought I could handle it. I thought if I just stayed strong enough, worked hard enough, I could hold everything together. The company, my son, my image. But they're trying to take it all away, and I just realized... Her voice cracked. I realized I don't even know what I'm fighting for anymore. The company, it's just money and power and an endless cycle of acquisition and defense. My son, he asked a stranger to cut his pasta because he doesn't trust me to do it. My life, what life? I built a fortress, and all I did was trap myself inside it. She looked up at Lucas, and for the first time he saw past the CEO to the frightened woman underneath. Who are you? She whispered. You read me like a medical textbook. You knew exactly what to do. That wasn't luck. Lucas was quiet for a long moment. He'd kept this secret for 3 years, hidden behind a new name and a different life. But sitting in this sterile room with a woman who just bared her soul, continuing to hide felt like cowardice. I was a trauma surgeon, he said finally. Military. I specialized in emergency field medicine and psychological triage. For 10 years I was one of the best. Was. My wife died during a routine surgery 3 years ago. The words still hurt to say. I was deployed overseas, consulting remotely on a difficult procedure. The surgeon called me for advice. I gave it. But something went wrong, and she didn't make it. I was thousands of miles away, trying to save strangers, while the woman I loved died because I wasn't there. Elena's expression softened with understanding. I quit the next day, changed my name, started over in a city where no one knew Dr. Lucas Bennett. I couldn't save her, so I decided I didn't deserve to save anyone else. I became a maintenance worker, a delivery driver, jobs where I'm always available for Sophie, jobs where I can't fail anyone important because I'm never far enough away to matter. You punished yourself, Elena said quietly. I chose differently. There's a difference. Is there? She studied him. You traded saving lives for fixing furnaces. You went from being extraordinary to being invisible. That sounds like punishment to me. Maybe, but at least now when Sophie needs me, I'm there. Every time. No exceptions. They sat in silence, two people who'd built different prisons for themselves, one of ice and ambition, one of guilt and self-imposed mediocrity. Then Oliver burst into the room, Sophie closed behind him. Mom! The boy's face was pale, his eyes wet with tears. Mom, are you okay? I was so scared. Everyone was saying you were sick, and the nannies always say you work too much, and one day you'll... He couldn't finish. He just crashed into Elena's arms, sobbing. Elena held him, her own tears finally falling. I'm okay, baby. I'm okay. I'm so sorry I scared you. But Oliver was shaking, his small body rigid with fear that had nothing to do with this moment and everything to do with months or years of accumulated anxiety. Lucas recognized the signs immediately. He'd seen it in soldiers who'd held themselves together through combat, only to fall apart when they finally reached safety. Oliver was having a full panic attack. If you believe children need presence more than presence, type truth in the comments. The next part will absolutely amaze you. Oliver, buddy, I need you to listen to my voice. Lucas knelt beside the boy, his tone calm and authoritative. Can you do that for me? Oliver's wild eyes found him, desperately seeking an anchor. Good. Now I want you to feel my shirt. Go ahead, grab it. What does it feel like? Small hands clutched at the faded cotton. Soft, Oliver managed between gasping breaths. That's right, nice and soft. Now, can you tell me what color it is? Blue. Perfect, you're doing great. Now look up. Count the lights on the ceiling for me. Take your time. As Oliver focused on the task, his breathing gradually slowed. Lucas continued the grounding exercise, his voice steady and sure, keeping the boy anchored in the present moment rather than lost in his panic. Elena watched, transfixed. She'd never seen anyone manage Oliver like this. His therapist spoke in soft, vague terms about emotional regulation and mindfulness practices. Lucas simply took control with the confidence of someone who knew exactly what he was doing. 5 minutes later, Oliver's breathing had normalized. He sagged against Lucas's chest, exhausted. You smell like fresh laundry, the boy mumbled into Lucas's shirt. And soap, clean soap. Well, I do a lot of laundry. It's part of the job. Lucas smiled, his hand gentle on Oliver's head. Can you stay? Oliver's voice was small. Please? I need someone who knows how to make things okay. The request hit Elena like a physical blow. Her son, her only child, was asking a stranger to stay because she'd failed to provide the one thing money couldn't buy: presence. Before she could respond, her assistant burst back into the room, phone in hand. Mrs. Crane, we have the video of your collapse is already trending. Crane breakdown is the #3 topic nationally, and the board is using it to invoke the fitness clause. They're voting in 20 minutes on whether to remove you as CEO. The blood drained from Elena's face. They can't. I built that company from... They can if they prove you're medically or mentally unfit to lead, and that video is their smoking gun. Lucas stood, his expression shifting from gentle caregiver to something sharper. He'd gone still, and Elena recognized that look, the mental gears turning, analyzing, strategizing. Who leaked the video? He asked quietly. The assistant blinked. What? The timing is too perfect. Elena collapsed less than 10 minutes ago, and it's already trending with a coordinated hashtag. Someone filmed it, edited it, and distributed it with remarkable efficiency. That's not organic, that's orchestrated. I don't know. It happened so fast. Lucas turned to Elena. Who wants you gone? Who has the most to gain from your removal? She thought for a moment. Victor Blackwell. My head of operations. He's been positioning himself as my successor for months, but the board won't back him while I'm in power. He's ambitious, ruthless, and he's been vocal about his disagreements with my management style. Does he have access to your schedule? Of course, all senior executives do. And did he know you'd be here tonight? Elena's eyes widened. Yes, it was on my calendar. Public appearance at Lumiere for soft media reintroduction. Lucas nodded grimly. Then this wasn't a crisis. It was a trap. Blackwell knew you'd be here. He probably knew you were stressed and running on empty. All he needed was for someone to push you over the edge. Mrs. Whitmore's public humiliation was perfectly timed, and your assistant's emergency phone call about the board meeting, that sealed it. You were already shaky, and that news sent you into shock. He turned to the assistant, his eyes sharp. Who hired you? What? I've worked for Mrs. Crane for 6 months. That's not what I asked. Who recommended you for the position? The assistant's face went pale. Mr. Blackwell. He said Mrs. Crane needed someone with experience in crisis management, and when the crisis happened, you filmed it instead of helping her. It wasn't a question. The assistant's silence was enough. Elena felt cold rage replacing her panic. Get out. You're fired. Security will escort you from the premises. After the assistant fled, Elena turned to Lucas. How did you see all that? Because I've seen it before. In war zones, commanders target enemy leaders by exploiting their weaknesses, creating cascading crises designed to overwhelm them. This was a surgical strike on your credibility, perfectly timed and executed. Blackwell didn't just want you to fail. He wanted you to fail publicly, spectacularly, in a way that would make your removal seem like a mercy. But the board meeting is in 15 minutes. Even if you're right, I can't prove any of this. I can't even prove I'm fit to lead after that collapse. Lucas was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then he smiled. Not the gentle smile he gave Sophie, but something sharper. The smile of a man who'd just seen the solution to an impossible problem. You don't need to prove you're fit to lead, he said. You need to prove Blackwell is unfit to exist in your company. And I know how to do it. If you believe the truth always comes out, comment justice below. Subscribe to Unbroken Truths. You won't believe what happens next. 23 minutes later, Lucas stood in the executive boardroom of Crane Industries, facing 12 of the most powerful people in New York's business world. He was still wearing his faded work shirt and cheap watch. He didn't care. Elena sat at the head of the table, her composure restored, her Ice Queen mask firmly back in place. But Lucas could see the fear underneath. This board could end everything she'd built with a single vote. Victor Blackwell sat to her right, his expression one of carefully practiced concern. I want to be clear that this gives me no pleasure, Elena. We all respect what you've built. But the shareholders deserve leadership that's stable, healthy, and present. Your collapse tonight, captured on video and viewed by millions, demonstrates that you're running yourself into the ground. For the good of the company, we need to discuss temporary medical leave. The words were kind. The intention was poison. Several board members nodded, murmuring agreement. Before you vote, Lucas said quietly, you should see this. He pulled out his phone, a beat-up model that looked ancient compared to the sleek devices around the table, and connected it to the presentation screen. The room went silent as a video began to play. It showed Elena's assistant in the restaurant, phone raised, deliberately filming Elena's collapse from the perfect angle. The assistant's face showed no concern, no shock, just cold calculation. She filmed for 30 seconds, then immediately pulled up social media and began uploading with pre-written captions and hashtags. That was filmed by the restaurant's security cameras, Lucas explained. I convinced the manager to give me the footage. Notice the timestamp. Your assistant began uploading the video within 60 seconds of Mrs. Crane's collapse. The hashtag Crane Breakdown was already prepared. This wasn't someone reacting to a crisis. This was someone executing a plan. Blackwell's face remained carefully neutral, but Lucas saw the tightness around his eyes. The video continued, showing the assistant making a phone call. Lucas enhanced the audio, a trick he'd learned from military intelligence briefings. The assistant's voice came through clearly. It's done. The video is live. She completely fell apart, just like you said she would. The board meeting is all yours. Blackwell's voice responded, Perfect. Make sure she doesn't recover in time to mount a defense. Keep her isolated and panicked until after the vote. The boardroom erupted. That's taken out of context. Blackwell stood, his face flushing red. This is absurd. Who is this man? Some random janitor making accusations. My name is Dr. Lucas Bennett, Lucas said calmly. Former trauma surgeon, military field medicine specialist. I served for 10 years before retiring, and I'm not finished. He pulled up another document on the screen. This is Mrs. Crane's medical file from her private physician, marked confidential. Somehow, excerpts from this file, taken out of context and edited to suggest chronic instability, were leaked to 3 board members this morning. The leaks came from an IP address registered to your home office, Mr. Blackwell. Blackwell's face went from red to white. You violated HIPAA laws, committed industrial espionage, and orchestrated a hostile takeover using fabricated medical evidence. That's not just unethical, it's criminal. The board members stared at Blackwell in horror. Furthermore, Lucas continued, his voice taking on the commanding tone of someone used to making life-or-death decisions under pressure, Mrs. Crane's collapse tonight wasn't a sign of instability. It was an acute stress response to your manufactured crisis, compounded by hypoglycemia from skipping meals while working 20-hour days to keep this company ahead of its competitors. I stabilized her in under 5 minutes using basic emergency medicine. He turned to face the full board. The question before you isn't whether Elena Crane is fit to lead. The question is whether you want a CEO who works herself to exhaustion for this company or a CFO who's willing to commit crimes to steal her position. The silence was deafening. One of the senior board members, an elderly woman named Catherine Reynolds, stood slowly. Mr. Blackwell, I move for your immediate suspension pending a full investigation into these allegations. Seconded, another voice called. The vote was unanimous. Security escorted Blackwell from the room. As he passed Lucas, he hissed, "You have no idea what you've done. She's still broken, and you can't fix her. This company will eat her alive without me." "Then I'll make sure it doesn't," Lucas replied quietly. After Blackwell was gone, Catherine Reynolds turned to Elena. "You've run yourself ragged for this company. We can all see it. Blackwell may have been malicious in his methods, but he wasn't entirely wrong about the underlying problem. You can't sustain this pace." "I know." Elena's voice was steady, but Lucas heard the exhaustion underneath. "I've been trying to be enough for the company, enough for my son, enough to honor my late husband's legacy, but I can't do it alone anymore." She turned to Lucas. "Dr. Bennett has proven himself to be a brilliant strategist, a skilled medical professional, and someone I trust absolutely. I'd like to offer him a position as Chief Wellness and Strategy Officer. His job will be to ensure that this company, starting with me, maintains the balance between ambition and health. No more 20-hour days, no more skipped meals and ignored warning signs. We build sustainably, or we don't build at all." The board members looked at Lucas with new respect. Catherine smiled. "A janitor who's actually a doctor. That's quite the undercover operation, Dr. Bennett." "I wasn't undercover," Lucas said. "I was just trying to be present for my daughter. But perhaps I've been punishing myself long enough. Perhaps it's time to do both, be present for Sophie and use my skills to help people again." He looked at Elena. "I'll accept the position on one condition. I maintain full custody and presence for my daughter. My schedule must allow me to be there for every school event, every dinner, every bedtime story. I won't sacrifice her childhood for any job, no matter how important." "Done," Elena said immediately. "In fact, I want the same thing. Oliver comes first. The company comes second. We build a culture around that principle, starting at the top." Catherine nodded approvingly. "A CEO who prioritizes her child over quarterly earnings? Now that's revolutionary. And Dr. Bennett, your official salary will be $850,000 annually with full benefits and equity options. Does that meet your needs?" Lucas nearly choked. That was more money than he'd seen in his entire life. Yes, that's more than adequate. As the board meeting concluded and people filed out, Oliver and Sophie burst into the room. "Did you win, Mom?" Oliver asked, his voice hopeful. Elena knelt down, pulling her son into a real hug, not the practiced, performative embraces she usually offered, but something genuine and tight and desperate. "We won, baby, and things are going to be different now. Better, I promise." Sophie tugged on Lucas's shirt. "Daddy, does this mean we're not poor anymore?" Lucas laughed, tears stinging his eyes. "Yes, sweetheart, I think we're going to be okay. Does this mean Oliver can come live with us? Can we be a real family?" Out of the mouths of children. Lucas and Elena locked eyes over their children's heads, and something unspoken passed between them. Recognition, understanding, and the beginning of something neither had expected to find. If you believe justice always wins when good people stand up, type victory in the comments. We're almost at the powerful ending. Stay with us. 6 months later, Lucas stood in the massive kitchen of Elena's penthouse. Correction, their penthouse now, watching the two kids build an elaborate fort out of blankets and furniture. Life had changed in ways he never imagined. He still worked, but now his office was a state-of-the-art medical facility within Crane Industries, where he consulted on employee wellness initiatives and corporate health strategies. He'd started a program offering free mental health services to all staff, had implemented mandatory work-life balance policies, and personally audited the executive team to ensure no one was burning out like Elena had been. The company's productivity had actually increased. Turns out people worked better when they weren't running on empty. But more importantly, he made it home for dinner every single night. He still helped with homework, still read bedtime stories, still cut Sophie's pasta into perfect pieces, though she was getting old enough to protest that she could do it herself. and Oliver had joined their evening routine. The boy who'd been so reserved and frightened now laughed freely, roughhoused with Sophie, and called Lucas Dad without hesitation. His therapist reported remarkable progress. His teachers said he was a different child, open, confident, happy, all because two broken adults had decided to choose differently. Elena emerged from her home office, her workday done at a reasonable hour for once. She'd learned to delegate, to trust her team, to accept that being a good CEO didn't mean being an absent mother. "How was your day?" Lucas asked, sliding a cup of tea across the counter to her. "Productive. Catherine suggested we expand the wellness program internationally. Every Crane Industries office around the world will have access to mental health resources by the end of the quarter." "That's incredible. It's necessary. Blackwell wasn't wrong about me burning out. He was just wrong about the solution. The answer wasn't replacing me. It was fixing the system that made burnout inevitable." She sipped her tea, watching the children play. "Thank you, Lucas, for saving my company, for saving me. I didn't save you. I just reminded you what was worth fighting for." "No." She turned to face him fully. "You did save me. That night in the restaurant when everyone else watched me collapse, you acted. When Blackwell tried to destroy me, you fought for me. And when I didn't know how to be a mother, you showed me." She reached for his hand. "I spent years building walls to protect myself from pain, but all I did was lock out everything good. You taught me that strength isn't about being invulnerable. It's about being brave enough to let people in." Lucas squeezed her hand gently. "You taught me something too. I thought I had to choose between being a good doctor and being a good father. But watching you fight to be both CEO and mother showed me that balance is possible. We just have to be willing to do the work." "Mom, Dad," Sophie called from the fort. "Come see what we built." They walked over together, and the kids proudly showed off their elaborate construction, a blanket kingdom complete with flashlight chandeliers and pillow thrones. "It's amazing," Elena said, genuinely impressed. "It's our home," Oliver explained, "a place where everyone's welcome and nobody has to be scared." Lucas felt his throat tighten. Such simple wisdom from a 6-year-old. Later that night, after the kids were asleep, Lucas and Elena sat on the penthouse terrace overlooking the glittering city. The same city where they'd both been drowning in different ways, him in poverty and guilt, her in wealth and isolation. "Do you ever regret it?" Elena asked quietly. "Giving up your anonymity? You were safe as a maintenance worker. No one expected anything from you." "Safety isn't the same as living," Lucas replied. "I was hiding. From my guilt, from my potential, from any possibility of failing again. But watching you fight for your company while also fighting to be present for Oliver, it made me realize that I was failing Sophie by playing small. She deserved a father who was fully alive, not just present." "And do you think—" Elena hesitated. "Do you think we're doing right by them? Sophie and Oliver, this unconventional family we've built?" Lucas smiled. "I think they're the happiest I've ever seen them. And isn't that the only measure that really matters?" He stood, pulling her to her feet. "Come on, let's check on them one more time before bed." They walked quietly to the kids' room, a space they now shared, filled with both expensive toys and simple handmade crafts. Sophie and Oliver were curled up in their respective beds, faces peaceful in sleep. Elena leaned against the doorframe, watching her son breathe softly. "I almost lost all of this. If you hadn't been there that night, but I was there, and you fought like hell to make things right. That's what matters." She turned to him, her eyes glistening in the dim light. "I love you, Lucas Bennett, the doctor, the janitor, the strategist, the father, all of you. I love every version of the man who saw me when I was drowning and chose to dive in anyway." "I love you too," Lucas said softly. "The ice queen, the fierce mother, the vulnerable woman, the warrior CEO, every single piece of you." They stood in the doorway, watching their children sleep, two broken people who'd found their way to wholeness through the most unlikely meeting. A billionaire and a janitor. A woman running from vulnerability and a man hiding from his potential. Two single parents desperate to give their children better lives. And somehow, impossibly, they'd built something beautiful from the wreckage. Not a fairy tale, just a real, messy, imperfect family held together by love, respect, and the daily choice to show up for each other. The city stretched out below them, millions of lights marking millions of lives. Somewhere out there, other people were drowning in their own ways, suffocating under success, hiding from their failures, building walls instead of bridges. But up here in this moment, two people had chosen differently. They'd chosen to be vulnerable instead of invincible. They'd chosen presence over perfection. They'd chosen love. And that made all the difference. Thank you for staying with me through Elena and Lucas's incredible journey. If this story touched your heart, do me a favor. Share it with someone who needs to be reminded that compassion is stronger than greed, that one voice speaking up can shatter years of silence, and that doing the right thing, even when you're scared, even when you have everything to lose, can change someone's entire world. Don't forget to subscribe to Unbroken Truths and turn on notifications so you never miss stories like this one, because every story we share is a reminder that hope, courage, and human connection will always win in the end. Drop a comment below. What inspired you most about Lucas's courage? Was it his willingness to step up when everyone else watched? His refusal to let Elena face her enemies alone? Let us know in the comments. If you believe that real strength means showing up for the people who need you, even when the world tells you you're not enough, drop a comment below. Hit that notification bell so you never miss a story that reminds you what truly matters. Share this with someone who needs to hear that presence is more valuable than any paycheck, that kindness is the ultimate power move, and that being underestimated doesn't mean being powerless. Because sometimes the most powerful person in the room is the one everyone underestimates. Thank you for being part of the Unbroken Truths family. Until next time, remember, your presence is your greatest present.